2 months after I died, it finally occurred to my parents that they had forgotten to bring me back from their trip. My father scowled in frustration. She was supposed to walk back herself. Does she really have to make such a big deal out of it? My brother, always smug, opened our family group chat and sent an emoji along with a message, "You'd better die out there. That way, Scarlett and I can split Grandma's inheritance." There was no reply. Unable to reach me, and under pressure from my grandmother, my family reluctantly found themselves standing in front of a rundown rental in the city. When my father knocked, a burly shirtless man opened the door. "Who are you looking for?" Seeing him instantly triggered my father's temper. "What's your relationship with my daughter, and why are you living here?" At that moment, a heavily pregnant woman stepped into view. "Did you come to the wrong address? We've been living here for 2 months now," she said. My mother's impatience flared. "This is the address my daughter Whitney gave us. How could we be wrong?" Frustrated by her refusal to listen, the man pushed her aside. "Get lost. You don't even know where your own daughter lives, and you dare call yourselves parents?" Then the pregnant woman added, "Was Whitney the previous tenant? The landlord said she owed a month's rent and couldn't be reached, so we moved in." Just as they were about to storm off in anger, the landlord arrived. Upon hearing they were my parents, he immediately started demanding payment. "You need to pay the back rent and get her stuff out of my storage. It's taking up space." My parents, skeptical, followed him to a storage room. Dust covered everything. None of it had been touched in 2 months. My father recognized some of my favorite clothes. "These are definitely hers." My mother frowned. "Is Whitney doing this on purpose? Leaving all this junk behind for us to clean up?" The landlord snapped. "It's not junk. These are her belongings, photo albums, important documents. She's a nice girl. I kept everything safe for her." My mother waved him off and stepped outside, disgusted by the mildew smell. She dialed my phone. After several missed calls, she left a voicemail. "Whitney, are you done with this nonsense? Your dad and I are at your rental. Come back immediately." Her usual tone dripped with disdain. She wasn't surprised I hadn't replied to Flynn's message. After all, my little brother and I had become enemies, thanks to Scarlett, our older sister, and her endless manipulation. When they got home, my mother called my grandmother. "Mom, what's so special about that ungrateful girl? Just leave everything to Scarlett and Flynn. Why bother with Whitney?" My spirit hovered nearby, unable to suppress a bitter laugh. I was her only biological daughter. Why did she hate me so much? My grandmother, furious, struggled to catch her breath. "I haven't heard from her in 2 months. I was worried sick. I still can't reach her. You must have bullied her. She lives with you, doesn't she? Get her on the phone right now." My mother hesitated and glanced at my father. 2 months ago, Flynn had the idea to go camping in the restricted Wild Valley. I had taken time off work, eager to bond with them despite the risks. But then Scarlett fell into the water. As soon as she was pulled out, she accused me of pushing her. My mother slapped me repeatedly without letting me explain. They left me there, in the wild. Little did they know, I never made it out. After 2 months of silence, they still hadn't realized the truth. Yet my mother calmly told my grandmother, "It's her fault. She's disobedient, jealous, and won't get along with her siblings. Who knows where she's run off to now? When did she stop being indifferent and start treating me like a monster?" I had spent my whole life trying to earn their love, even just a glance. I lived for the rare moments when, without Scarlett and Flynn around, they were forced to acknowledge me. But now, I no longer needed their scraps of affection. Over the phone, my grandmother declared, "If I don't see Whitney soon, I'll donate my entire fortune to charity." Then she hung up in fury. My mother's face darkened. That ungrateful girl is hiding on purpose. Does she think we can't survive without her? Let's see how long she keeps this up. Flynn came downstairs. Hearing their angry remarks, he said, "Don't worry, Mom and Dad. Whitney cares the most about Grandma. She'll definitely show up for her birthday party." His confidence soothed them. Flynn picked up the remote to watch the game but accidentally switched to the local news. A striking headline appeared. "Body discovered by tourist in Wild Valley. Area to be closed indefinitely." The anchor urged viewers to stay away from the hazardous zone. Flynn straightened up, disbelief on his face. They're actually closing Wild Valley? Then he jumped from the couch and laughed. This is amazing. That camping trip we took is legendary now. I can't wait to tell my classmates, they'll be so jealous. My mother's expression slowly relaxed. Later, while sitting on the bed, she picked up her phone and opened our chat. She held the button to record a voice message. Whitney, get home by tomorrow, and I'll let you move back in. If you keep hiding, I swear I'll cut you off. She knew I had always craved their approval. That threat was always enough to pull me back, desperate to fix things. But not anymore. She no longer had power over me. Because I had been dead for 2 months. The next day, there was still no word from me. My grandmother showed up early at their door. Since my death, I had longed to see her again. But my spirit was trapped near my mother, unable to leave. Her presence made my passing feel less lonely. I tried to reach her, to touch her, but Flynn rushed forward first. Grandma, he shouted, hugging her. Over the years, Flynn had charmed her with fake sweetness, often using me as a bridge. Despite the lack of blood ties, she had accepted him fully. She smiled and pulled him down beside her. Look at you. Still loud even as a grown man. Where's your sister, Scarlett? She asked. Scarlett ran out immediately. Grandma. You're here. But my grandmother's warmth faded. She offered a cold nod, lacking any enthusiasm. My mother frowned. Mom, Scarlett's greeting you. Why are you being so cold? My grandmother's face darkened. You always defend her. You're blind to how she bullies others. I just don't like her. What's wrong with that? Ever since I moved in with them, Scarlett had tormented me, faking falls, tearing my homework, hiding my things, drawing on my clothes. Her actions were encouraged by my mother's favoritism. I had learned to accept being the outsider. In the living room, tensions flared. Where's Whitney? My grandmother asked, scanning the room. She's throwing a fit, my mother said with a sigh. She refuses to come out. What happened? My mother avoided mentioning Wild Valley. Well, we didn't attend her graduation, and she's been sulking ever since. My grandmother's face darkened. She told me she didn't know the date. As parents, how could you miss that? My mother opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Scarlett had injured her foot that day and clung to her. They couldn't leave, but she knew that excuse wouldn't help Scarlett's case. A heavy silence settled around the table. Mom, my father called out, come eat. My grandmother reluctantly sat down, not wanting to fight further. My mother, in a rare good mood, poured everyone imported soda. Drink more water, my grandmother warned. You've had kidney disease. Whitney even gave you a kidney. What do you want, another? My mother froze, gripping her glass. What are you talking about? It was Scarlett who donated her kidney. Don't lie in front of the kids. Her eyes were full of certainty. My grandmother rose, furious. You're so foolish. I told you not to trust that ungrateful girl. Look at what she's made you believe. Years ago, when my mother was sick, I had anonymously donated my kidney. My grandmother knew it was me. I had begged her to keep it secret. I wanted her love to be genuine, not guilt-driven. Out of guilt for separating my parents long ago, my grandmother had agreed. But my mother never knew. Now that the truth had come out, she refused to believe it. What should have been a peaceful family meal ended in chaos. As soon as my grandmother left, my mother's phone lit up. On the screen, one name flashed. Whitney. The phone slipped from my mother's hand. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. My father, chewing slowly on a mouthful of rice, paused mid-bite. Flynn and Scarlett turned their heads in sync. The name Whitney glowed on the phone screen like an accusation, like the echo of a ghost refusing to stay buried. Is this some kind of joke? My mother asked, her voice trembling, not with grief, not with fear, but with irritation. Her fingers moved hesitantly toward the device, as if it might bite her. Flynn snatched it up before she could reach. It's a message, he said, squinting at the screen. From Whitney's number. He played the voice message aloud. It was just static at first, then a faint rustle, like wind brushing over dry leaves. And then silence. Everyone leaned in. Then came the unmistakable sound of my voice. Grandma, I miss you. It was just that. Just 7 words. Calm, gentle, unhurried. But the effect was nuclear. My grandmother's eyes widened. Her hands flew to her mouth as if to hold back the cry that threatened to escape. My mother, pale as chalk, snatched the phone back. This is fake. Someone's faking her voice. Probably one of those AI apps, those deepfakes. But the crack in her voice betrayed her disbelief. My father, ever skeptical, scoffed. You think Whitney would know how to pull off a stunt like this? She couldn't even set up the TV's parental controls. Exactly, Flynn chimed in, eyes narrowing. This is creepy. Like, what if she's, watching us? Trying to scare us. Scarlett, who had been unusually quiet until then, added in a low voice, or maybe someone else has her phone. My grandmother stood, her posture rigid and regal. I don't know what that was, but I'll find out. If Whitney is alive and in trouble, I will bring her home myself. And if she's dead, I'll make sure she's remembered with love. Not shame. My mother rolled her eyes, but said nothing. That evening, after Grandma left, the atmosphere in the house was heavy. No one spoke much. Even Flynn kept the volume low on his video games. My mother busied herself organizing the kitchen drawers, as if sorting cutlery could rearrange the truth. But my father grew more anxious by the hour. He pulled out a map of Wild Valley and laid it on the table, tracing their hiking route with his finger. We left the river bend around noon, he mumbled to himself, and passed that old ranger station by 3. Then Scarlett entered the room, arms folded. Dad, why are you doing this? He didn't look up. Because maybe we missed something. She's dead, Scarlett said bluntly. You're chasing shadows. My father didn't answer, but his jaw clenched. That night, he stayed up late, scrolling through online forums about the Wild Valley closure, looking for mentions of unidentified bodies, missing hikers, and anything that might match his daughter's name. Meanwhile, my spirit lingered. I watched them. Watched Flynn take a photo of the map and send it to his friends with a laughing emoji. Watched Scarlett record a TikTok video in her room, telling a story that clearly mocked me, while hiding the context behind vague captions and trendy music. Watched my mother sigh and delete old texts from me as if erasing my name from her phone could erase her guilt. I hovered in silence, anchored by heartbreak. But I wasn't alone. That night, something shifted. For the first time since my death, I wasn't just wandering aimlessly. I felt a pull, like a thread tugging gently at my core. It led me out of the house, through darkened streets, past shops with flickering neon signs and alleys filled with the soft hum of sleeping cities. It led me to a building, old, forgotten, with ivy crawling up its bricks and paint peeling like sunburned skin. Inside, I found her. Emily. We had been best friends once. Before Scarlett drove a wedge between us. Before I was forced to choose family loyalty over friendship. Emily had been the only one who saw through Scarlett's sweet facade, the only one who believed me when I said I didn't push her into that river. She sat at her desk, surrounded by boxes of unsent letters. Letters addressed to me. Her room was a shrine of grief. My photos lined the wall, some with candles beneath them, others covered in scribbled notes and taped conversations we once had. One picture had a caption written across it in bold black marker. If you're reading this, it's already too late. She was working on something, typing on an old laptop, eyes bloodshot but determined. I leaned in, reading the open document. The truth about Whitney, a sister's lies, a family's shame. She hadn't forgotten. Emily had been investigating my disappearance all along. She had collected posts from Scarlett's fake accounts, screenshots of altered timestamps, and even a secretly recorded voice memo of Flynn joking about Wild Valley being the perfect crime scene if someone ever wanted to get rid of a body. She hadn't shared it yet. But she was close. And someone knew. Just then, there was a knock at her window. Emily froze. The knock came again, louder this time. She stood slowly, peeking out through the curtain. Scarlett. Smiling. Holding something in her hand. A bottle? No, a canister. Of lighter fluid. I surged forward, screaming silently, powerless to intervene. Emily didn't open the window. She backed away, heart racing. She grabbed her phone and dialed. Her hands trembled. Scarlett's smile faded. She mouthed something through the glass. You don't know who you're messing with. Then she was gone. Emily collapsed into her chair, shaking. And I made a vow. If I couldn't protect myself in life, I would protect those who still carried my truth. The next day, Emily visited the police station. She filed a formal report, included screenshots, and handed over a flash drive. But she didn't feel safe. She packed a small bag and left town for a while. Said she needed to clear her head. She told no one where she was going, not even her parents. But she left a message on her locked social media account. If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident. Search Scarlett. Ask Flynn. Look for the truth. Back at home, Grandma had begun making arrangements for a private investigator. Meanwhile, Flynn was too busy celebrating his college acceptance to care. Scarlett was planning a party. And my mother? She kept glancing at the phone, as if expecting another message. But I didn't send one. I was waiting? Waiting for the moment the truth would no longer be deniable. Waiting for Emily to return. Waiting for the next body to be found in Wild Valley. Because the land remembers. And justice, though silent, was already rising from beneath the soil. Emily didn't stay gone for long. 3 weeks after leaving town, she returned, not with the same wide-eyed girl I had once laughed with in school, but with sharper edges, refined by fear and grief. The old Emily would have waited quietly, trusted adults, and obeyed protocol. The new Emily walked with a voice recorder in her pocket and pepper spray on her keychain. She didn't go home first. Instead, she went straight to my grandmother's house. When my grandmother opened the door, the sight of Emily nearly buckled her knees. She pulled her inside without a word, eyes watering. They sat together on the worn couch I used to curl up on during summer breaks. No words were needed at first. The grief between them was enough to fill the room. I don't think Whitney ran away, Emily finally said, her voice firm but soft. I think she's gone. And I think your family knows more than they've admitted. Grandma's eyes narrowed. They've been hiding something. I've known it since the day her mother said she was sulking after graduation. Whitney wasn't a child. She didn't sulk. She vanished. Emily pulled a flash drive from her coat pocket and handed it over. These are my backups. Screenshots of text messages, a timeline I've pieced together, and a voice recording of Flynn bragging about Wild Valley. My grandmother held the flash drive delicately, as though it were a relic. You're doing what I should have done, she whispered. You're fighting for her. I couldn't save her, Emily said. But I can stop them from burying her twice. Meanwhile, at my parents' house, the air had shifted. My mother had stopped making passive remarks about me. She no longer called my phone at night. She didn't check my room. It was as if she had scrubbed my existence from the walls. Scarlett continued to post curated photos of her life, brunches with friends, nail appointments, inspirational quotes about cutting off negative people as if she weren't the architect of my erasure. Flynn, on the other hand, had grown more erratic. Paranoid. He started locking his bedroom door, glancing over his shoulder, and muttering under his breath. One night, he bolted awake from a nightmare, drenched in sweat. She's coming back, he whispered. I saw her. What are you talking about? My mother snapped as she stormed into his room. Who's coming back? Flynn didn't answer. His eyes were glassy. Haunted. That night, he took all of his camping gear and burned it in the backyard. Scarlett watched from the window and rolled her eyes. Dramatic much? But I was there too. I watched the flames consume the tent, the hiking boots, the water-stained backpack that I had carried into Wild Valley. The fire didn't warm me. It didn't matter how much they tried to destroy. I was already part of the land now. But I wasn't the only one rising. Emily took the evidence to the police. Not all of it, just enough to spark an investigation. The detective she met with was young, perhaps too young to grasp the depth of family betrayal, but he listened. Took notes. Promised to follow up. 2 days later, an officer visited my parents' house. My father answered the door, feigning confusion. A missing persons case? That's months old. Whitney ran off. It's not like she was kidnapped. We have new information, the officer said. May we come in? They did. Flynn nearly choked on his cereal. Scarlett's eyes narrowed, calculating. My mother stood rigid in the hallway, arms crossed, defensive. We already answered all this. She left on her own. Ask her friends. Ask her work. She was rebellious. The officer took out a photo. Are you familiar with this area of Wild Valley? My father glanced at it. Sure. We camped there. But it was ages ago. 3 months ago, the officer corrected. And the area is now closed due to recent hazardous terrain. But a second body was found. Female. Decomposed. Likely there for a while. My mother's face went pale. And you think it's? We won't know until DNA testing is complete. Scarlett dropped her phone. Her hands trembled just enough for my grandmother to notice, because she had arrived, too. She stood in the doorway behind the officers, silent, watching everyone's faces. When my mother saw her, the mask slipped. You brought them here? No, Grandma said coldly. They came because someone finally listened. You never did. Scarlett tried to regain control. This is ridiculous. Whitney was probably trying to manipulate us into guilt. And now you're all feeding into her game. The room fell quiet. Then the officer added, we also found blood stains on the rocks near the river. Human blood. Partial match to the missing person. Flynn's cereal bowl dropped from his hand and shattered. Scarlett whispered something under her breath. My mother sat down. But my grandmother stood taller than ever. Over the next week, police returned again and again. They searched Flynn's room. They questioned Scarlett. They pulled phone records. My mother denied everything. Flynn cracked first. He hadn't meant for anything to happen, he swore. It was Scarlett who yelled at Whitney. Scarlett who shoved her when no one was looking. I didn't even see it happen, I just heard the splash. She screamed for help, he said once in a recording. But Scarlett said not to go in. Said it would make it look like we were guilty. Scarlett denied it all. Called Flynn unstable. Accused him of spinning lies because of his own guilt. He's been using my makeup, she added coldly, trying to humiliate him into silence. But the evidence was piling. Then came the DNA results. The body was mine. Whitney Evelyn Morse. Age 21. My grandmother broke down in the station when they told her. But she asked to see me. Even in death, she wanted to see me. The detective was kind enough to allow her a moment with the remains, just a lock of hair, just the necklace I always wore. Her fingers trembled as she held the broken chain. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have protected you. She arranged for a private funeral. Flynn didn't attend. Scarlett wasn't invited. My mother showed up late and didn't speak. But my story didn't end there. 2 weeks after the funeral, Emily published everything. The blog post titled The Girl They Forgot went viral overnight. Screenshots. Audio clips. The police report. The photos from the funeral. The emotional video of my grandmother holding the necklace. The final voice message from my phone. People shared their own stories in the comments, about being scapegoats in their families, about being the forgotten ones, about surviving when no one else believed them. Donations poured in to support a scholarship fund in my name. The hashtag Justice for Whitney trended for 5 days. Scarlett tried to delete her accounts. It didn't work. The internet never forgets. Flynn dropped out of college. Last I heard, he was working nights at a gas station in another state, eyes always darting to the door. My mother? She still walks the house at night, pausing outside my empty room. I'm the silence in her walls. The ghost in her mirrors. I am the ache she cannot name. As for Emily, she kept going. She started a foundation for girls like me, those erased, neglected, abandoned. She visits my grandmother every week. And sometimes, when she's alone in her room, she talks to the air. Whitney, she says softly, I hope you see it. I hope you know I never stopped looking. I do. Because I'm still here. Not as a whisper of the past. But as the reckoning they never saw coming. The truth had surfaced, but justice, real justice, moved slowly. After Emily's expose, the world knew my name. For once, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the forgotten daughter, the overlooked sister, the burden. I was Whitney Morse. And for the first time in my life, or afterlife, people were saying my name with reverence instead of annoyance. But inside the house where I used to live, things were unraveling. My mother grew quieter by the day. She stopped arguing, stopped yelling. Instead, she stared out the kitchen window for hours. She didn't cook anymore. The fridge was full of expired food. She kept the curtains drawn, and when someone knocked at the door, she didn't answer unless they said her name. She refused to speak about me. Not to Scarlett. Not to Flynn. Not even to the reporters who hovered near the front steps. She called them vultures and slammed the door in their faces. But she couldn't shut out the past. I was everywhere. My childhood drawings, long stored in boxes, mysteriously reappeared in the hallway. A locket with my photo, long since tucked away in a forgotten drawer, found its way back to her nightstand. Even the framed family photo she kept in the living room, once carefully edited to crop me out, was replaced by the original. Scarlett accused Grandma. Flynn blamed Emily. But neither of them had touched the photo. And late at night, my mother would wake up to the sound of music playing faintly, my old playlist. Songs she used to scoff at. Songs I would hum quietly in the backseat of the car, hoping she'd one day ask what I was listening to. She never did. Now they echoed through the silence of her house like lullabies from a daughter she never wanted to understand. Flynn was unraveling faster. The guilt had cracked something inside him, and he started talking to the air like it could hear him. I didn't mean it, he muttered into the mirror one night. I didn't think she'd really drown. He started seeing me everywhere, in reflections, in dreams, in the edge of his peripheral vision. He told Scarlett once that he saw my shadow move across the hallway. She laughed and told him to stop watching horror movies. But he wasn't lying. I was there. Not as vengeance, but as consequence. Scarlett was the only one still trying to salvage her reputation. Her social media accounts went private for a while, but when the noise died down, she re-emerged, this time branding herself as a survivor of a complicated family tragedy. She started posting vague captions about pain, healing, and growth. People saw through her. Her followers dwindled. Sponsors dropped her. Old classmates posted receipts, screenshots of her mocking me in group chats, videos of her lying to teachers. Even old babysitters came forward with stories about how she'd play innocent and blame every mess on me. Still, she persisted. She tried to give interviews. Talked about how she was misunderstood. How trauma had shaped her. How she was working on herself. One morning, she stepped outside and found red paint splattered across her car. 3 words were scrawled across the windshield. She told the truth. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip. My mother stayed inside. Flynn avoided the windows. Scarlett, for once, didn't go live to talk about it. Because deep down, she knew she was being watched. Not just by cameras. Not just by the public. But by me. Meanwhile, Emily's foundation was growing. It started as a blog and a GoFundMe. But then a nonprofit reached out. Then another. Survivors contacted her. Girls who had been scapegoated, disbelieved, erased. They saw themselves in me. And in Emily, they saw hope. The foundation was named The Invisible Thread because, as Emily explained in her launch speech, even when the world tries to cut you off, there's always a thread connecting us to someone who remembers. Someone who refuses to let you be forgotten. Grandma was the first donor. She gave everything. She sold the jewelry she'd planned to leave to Flynn and Scarlett. Sold an old family heirloom she had promised to my mother. She even cashed in a retirement policy early. This money is wasted on people who don't value life, she said. Let it go to the ones who still have a chance to survive theirs. People applauded. My mother called it betrayal. But the truth? It was freedom. Around this time, the investigation shifted. At first, the police believed it was a tragic accident. No witnesses. No signs of foul play. A body swept downstream. A family that panicked. But then the forensic report came back. My wrist had been broken, snapped, before I drowned. There were fingernail marks on my arms. Bruises on my neck. It wasn't just an accident. It was an attack. The prosecutor reopened the case. Flynn was called back in for questioning. His alibi began to crumble. He had lied about the exact time of the incident. He had claimed Scarlett wasn't near the river when I fell. But now the GPS data from their phones told a different story. Scarlett had deleted hers. Flynn hadn't. They matched. They had both been right beside me. Flynn tried to strike a deal. In exchange for immunity, he gave the full story. It started with a dare. Scarlett accused me of ruining her sandals, something petty and absurd. When I denied it, she accused me of being jealous. She knew what to say to push my buttons. She always had. I told her to grow up. Flynn, caught in the middle as usual, laughed. That's when she shoved me. I slipped on the wet rocks. I screamed. I tried to grab Flynn. Scarlett pulled him away. Then she stood there and watched as the river dragged me under. Flynn cried. Scarlett told him to shut up. Tears won't bring her back, she said. That statement appeared in the official report. It went public. And the world changed again. Scarlett was arrested. Charged with involuntary manslaughter and obstruction of justice. Flynn was spared criminal charges but was ordered to complete mandatory counseling and community service through the Invisible Thread Foundation. Grandma insisted. I want him to look those girls in the eyes, she said. And maybe then he'll understand what it means to destroy a life. My mother? She withdrew entirely. She refused to attend the hearings. Refused to comment. Refused to sign the release forms to donate my remaining belongings. Grandma signed instead. She gave my journals to Emily. She kept one photo for herself, the one where I was 6 years old, missing my front teeth, holding a wilted daisy I had picked just for her. She kept it in her wallet. I wish I could say that Scarlett confessed. That she felt remorse. But even in court, she rolled her eyes. Claimed she hadn't meant to hurt me. That it was just an argument. She said it with the same smugness she used in high school debates. But this time, nobody clapped. This time, the judge didn't award her points for confidence. He sentenced her to 5 years. Not nearly enough. But it was something. Flynn didn't speak to her after the sentencing. He walked out of the courtroom without looking back. My mother wasn't there. Neither was Emily. Because she was hosting a community vigil that night. 100 people gathered in the park where I used to play as a child. They lit candles, read passages from my journal, told stories about the quiet girls, the kind girls, the forgotten girls who were stronger than anyone I ever knew. And Emily stood beneath the oak tree where I carved my initials once and said, she deserved more than silence. She deserved more than shadows. Whitney was not a ghost. She was a person. And we will remember her as one. They sang afterward. A song I used to hum to myself when I couldn't sleep. Grandma sang too, her voice shaking but clear. And somewhere between the last verse and the closing prayer, I felt something shift. The pull. The thread. The final knot in my heart loosened. Not because I was avenged, but because I was remembered. That night, my mother sat alone in her darkened house, staring at an unopened envelope. It was addressed in my handwriting. She had ignored it for months. Now she opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. It said, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. But I want you to know, I spent my whole life trying to be seen. And now that I am, I finally feel free. She didn't cry. But her hands trembled. And for the first time since my death, she whispered my name. Whitney. She said it like a prayer. Like an apology. Like a goodbye. After the sentencing, the world moved on. At least, that's how it looked on the surface. Headlines faded. The hashtag stopped trending. People stopped sharing photos of me. The candles from the vigil burned down to wax stubs and were swept away by the morning wind. But beneath that quiet, a deeper current stirred. Scarlett was gone, serving her sentence in a minimum security facility, where she still played the victim. From what Emily heard through a reporter contact, she called it a wellness retreat with fences. She'd been given a job in the kitchen, where she continued to complain that she was being punished for being misunderstood. Flynn returned home briefly, but nothing was the same. He no longer called our mother Mom. He didn't make eye contact with her. He didn't laugh the way he used to, and the boy who once bragged about family adventures now walked with shoulders slumped and headphones always in. He tried to fulfill his obligation to the foundation, but it was clear that every moment among survivors made him squirm. The girls weren't afraid to ask questions. What did you do? Why didn't you save her? Would you have lied if it was your brother instead of your sister? Flynn never had answers. He just sat there, head bowed, absorbing the weight of what he'd been part of. Emily tried to help him. She offered him space to write, to speak. She believed in accountability, but also in rehabilitation. Still, every time Flynn picked up a pen, he ended up staring at the page in silence, as if nothing he could write would undo what he had allowed to happen. He didn't last long. After 2 weeks, he quietly packed a bag and left a note at the foundation office. "I don't deserve this chance. But thank you for offering it." No one heard from him again after that. Rumors said he moved west, working under a fake name at a campground. Maybe it was his way of punishing himself. Maybe he was still running from my voice. I wasn't chasing him. I had already let go. Grandma, however, didn't let go so easily. She took over my bedroom, transforming it into a sanctuary, not of grief, but of remembrance. She painted the walls a warm yellow, hung up my favorite prints, shelved my books, even the ones with broken spines. At the center of the room, she placed a glass case. Inside it sat my necklace, the one they had recovered with my remains. She polished the chain every Sunday. "It's not for show," she told Emily one afternoon. "It's to remind me that even the smallest, most fragile thing can carry the weight of a life." She joined the Invisible Thread board of directors and began speaking at events. Her presence drew attention, not just because of her age, but because of her conviction. She told my story without trembling. She called out neglect when she saw it. And she never once let anyone forget what had happened. At one conference, a woman approached her in tears. "My daughter's name was Rachel," she said. "Your granddaughter's story gave me the courage to speak up. Thank you for keeping her memory alive." That night, my grandmother sat alone on the porch and whispered to the stars, "I hope you see this, Whitney. I hope you know what you started." I did. As for Emily, she was no longer just a friend. She became a voice. Not the loudest, but the most consistent. She spoke on panels, wrote essays, mentored girls who had been cast out by their families. She never sensationalized my death. Instead, she told the story plainly, of a girl who was failed not by one decision, but by a lifetime of being unheard. She visited my grave every month. Not out of obligation, but ritual. She would bring fresh lilacs, my favorite, and read passages from her journal. Not for me, but for her. It helped her heal. Helped her remember who she was before guilt and grief rewrote her. One day, she came with news. "They're starting a scholarship in your name," she whispered, kneeling beside the stone. "Full tuition. For girls who want to study psychology or social work. Girls who want to make sure no one like you gets ignored again." She smiled, brushing leaves from the stone. "I think you'd be proud." I was. And yet, not everything was peaceful. Not yet. Because my mother was still drowning. She refused to attend any of the events. When people mentioned my name, she changed the subject. When Scarlett's trial played on the news, she turned the TV off. She scrubbed the walls of our house, as if memory itself could be bleached away. But memory doesn't live in dust. It lives in silence. In rooms that used to echo with voices that will never return. She stopped answering phone calls. Closed the blinds permanently. Let the mail pile up until the mailbox overflowed. The HOA issued warnings. She ignored them. One day, a neighbor knocked and found her sitting on the floor of the kitchen, surrounded by shredded photographs. My photos. All torn into pieces, scattered like confetti across the tiles. I didn't know, she kept repeating. I didn't know. But she did. She just didn't care to look deeper. Not until it was too late. After that, she was admitted for observation. Diagnosed with severe depressive disorder with signs of dissociation. She was placed under psychiatric care for 6 weeks. During that time, Grandma visited once. They didn't speak at first. Then my mother finally looked at her and asked, "Why did she love you more?" Grandma didn't answer immediately. She stood, walked to the window, and opened it, letting in the light. "She didn't," Grandma said softly. "She just stopped waiting for you to love her back." That broke something in my mother. Something that maybe needed to break. She was released quietly. No cameras. No statements. She moved in with her sister in another city. Changed her name. Told people she was a widow with no children. Reinvented herself into someone who had never failed a daughter. Who had never missed a graduation. Who had never slapped her own blood in front of a crowd. But you can't lie to the mirror. And every night, when she closed her eyes, I was still there. Not accusing. Not punishing. Just watching. Just remembering. 3 months after Scarlett was imprisoned, she requested a hearing. She wanted early release. Claimed to be a model inmate and fully rehabilitated. The hearing was public. Emily attended. So did Grandma. Scarlett walked in wearing a neutral-colored jumpsuit and a fake humility that could have fooled strangers, but not us. She apologized to the court. Said she let her jealousy win and that she was haunted by what happened. That she missed me. That she prayed for me. Emily stood and gave a victim impact statement. She never missed Whitney, Emily said. She missed having someone to torment. She isn't haunted. She's inconvenienced. Scarlett's request was denied. The judge's gavel hit like thunder. Grandma smiled. For the first time since my funeral, she laughed. Time passed. And slowly, healing did too. Emily finished her degree in social work. The first Whitney Moore Scholarship recipient graduated. The invisible thread expanded into 10 states. My story was featured in a documentary on emotional abuse within families. Viewers cried, wrote letters, told their truths. One letter read, "I was Whitney, but I survived. And in those words, I lived again." In the end, I didn't need revenge. I didn't need screams or chains or retribution. I needed the truth. And now it stood, solid as stone, where once there was only silence. I still visited Emily, Grandma, the places I had loved. But not as a ghost. Not anymore. I was a memory now. A legacy. A name no longer erased. And soon, the world would learn the final part of the story. Because Emily had just finished her book. Its title? The Girl They Forgot, a memoir of love, loss, and listening. And the dedication on the first page read, "For Whitney, who was never truly gone. We just needed to look harder." The morning Emily's book was released, it was raining. Not a cold, violent storm, but a gentle, cleansing kind of rain. The type that makes flowers bloom after long droughts. The type that feels like forgiveness. She stood outside the bookstore, clutching a single copy of The Girl They Forgot. Her name was on the cover, her words inside. But it wasn't really about her. It was about me. And everyone like me. The forgotten daughters. The overlooked sons. The invisible siblings. The children who sat quietly at dinner tables, who got passed over for hugs and praise, whose birthdays were forgotten but whose failures were remembered in vivid detail. Inside the store, a long table was set up with stacks of her book, each one bearing the image of a daisy growing from cracked pavement, my favorite flower and a symbol of endurance. Grandma arrived first. She walked with a cane now but still stood taller than anyone else in the room. When she reached Emily, she didn't say anything, just opened the book, ran her fingers over the dedication, and kissed the page softly. "She would have loved this," she said. "I hope so," Emily replied, her voice trembling. Within hours, the store was filled. Not with celebrities. Not with influencers. But with teachers. With social workers. With counselors. With girls in hoodies and sneakers who came with tear-streaked faces, whispering, "This was me," and leaving letters for Emily to pass on to me, just in case I was still listening. I was. I always had been. That night, Emily read the final chapter aloud. It wasn't written in the same voice as the rest of the book. This one was softer. Like a letter. Like a prayer. Like closure. Some people believe justice is loud. That it comes with police sirens and courtroom verdicts. But sometimes, justice is quiet. It's the truth finally being spoken. It's a room full of strangers saying your name. It's the moment someone who once ignored you picks up a book and says, "I didn't know." She paused. Whitney was not perfect. She was not loud. She was not the center of attention. But she was good. And kind. And full of stories no one ever bothered to listen to. Until now. The room was silent. No applause. Just stillness. And in that stillness, something lifted. For the first time in 2 years, I felt free. Not from life. But from pain. From waiting. From the desperate hope that someone would say, "I see you." They had. Emily closed the book. Grandma stood and joined her at the microphone. And then, together, they said my name. Whitney Evelyn Morse. In the days that followed, the book hit bestseller lists. But Emily didn't care about that. She cared about the messages. The letters from strangers. The girl in Ohio who read it under her covers with a flashlight and wrote, "Your book made me feel like I wasn't crazy for feeling invisible." The father in Michigan who said, "I saw myself in the parents. I don't want to be that father anymore." The teacher in Brazil who had it translated and used it as curriculum in her classroom. Emily printed every letter. She didn't frame them. She didn't post them online. She kept them in a box. The same box where she had stored my birthday cards, our old school photos, and the paper bracelet from the last concert we went to together. "I don't need a trophy," she said once. "I just need to know she mattered." She did. Scarlet was released after serving 4.5 years. There was no welcome party. No crowd. No balloons. Just a cab that pulled up to the curb and a silent drive to an apartment she had rented under a different name. She applied for jobs but was turned down repeatedly. Her reputation followed her everywhere. Some said they recognized her from the book. Others just felt uneasy. Once, she called Emily. Emily didn't answer. The voicemail went like this. "I read the book. I know what I did. But I was just a kid, too. That's not who I am now. I wanted you to know." Emily deleted it. Not out of anger. But because she didn't need Scarlett's words to validate the truth. That chapter was closed. Flynn never returned. Years later, someone spotted him in Oregon, working maintenance at a hiking lodge. He didn't speak much. Went by a different name. Wore long sleeves even in summer. A girl at the lodge asked him once if he had siblings. He said no. But when she saw the stack of books he kept by his bedside, she noticed one copy was different. Worn. Dog-eared? The girl they forgot. Flynn had underlined one line in red ink. To watch and do nothing is not innocence. It is silent cruelty. He never told anyone why. But sometimes, when storms rolled in, he would sit by the fire and whisper one name. Whitney. And then say nothing more. As for my mother, she never changed her name back. She lived quietly in a city far from where we grew up. She worked at a small bookstore and told people her daughter had passed away from an illness. She never married again. Never had more children. Sometimes she took walks at dusk. Sometimes she stood still when lilacs bloomed. Sometimes she dreamed of a girl with a broken necklace and gentle eyes, waiting by a river that never stopped flowing. And once a year, without telling anyone, she mailed a check to the Invisible Thread Foundation. No return address. No note. Just a check and a name written in shaky handwriting. For Whitney. On the 5th anniversary of my death, Emily and Grandma visited the park. The same oak tree stood strong. The bench beneath it had been replaced. A small plaque had been installed. It read, "In memory of Whitney E. Morse. You were not forgotten. You were found. You are loved." Emily sat in silence, running her fingers across the letters. "Do you feel her?" Grandma asked. Emily nodded. "Always." And she did. In every story she told. In every girl who stood up for herself. In every moment someone chose truth over comfort. In every quiet victory. Because I was never the ghost they thought I was. I was the spark. The echo. The reminder that silence is never safety. And that even the forgotten can start a fire that never dies. So this is the end. Not of my story, but of my silence. Thank you for hearing me. For remembering me. For saying my name. I was Whitney Evelyn Morse. And I mattered.